Good morning, internets. It's a beautiful day. It's Friday. Made it to Friday. I'm surprised. How about you guys? You guys ever make it to Friday and think to yourself, holy crap, I cannot believe it's Friday and I survived. That is the kind of day I'm having right now. I want to talk to you guys a little bit this morning about a couple of things. And they all center around Volkswagen. So, I've mentioned in a couple of other videos that my last car was a Volkswagen Passat and that I was traumatized by it. And that's what led me to get into something completely different with the Chevy Volt. And there were a lot of reasons I wanted this car after my experience with the Passat. But Volkswagen's doing some new things that might make me consider the brand again someday in the future. So here's what happened. My last car was an 06 Volkswagen Passat with the perforated leather interior, white car, beautiful car. Up until that point, it was probably the nicest car I had ever driven, and I was in love with it. I absolutely adored this car. And I first started driving it in December of last year. So I had the car for less than a year. I had the car for about 9 months. But it started giving me some trouble much sooner than that. So, here's what happened with that car. I had the 2-liter turbo motor, and that was an efficiency turbo. When you popped the hood and looked at the turbo, it was the cutest little thing. Like, if you know anything about turbos, like this one was little. It was like the size of a coaster. Building tiny amounts of boost, but the purpose of the thing was to give it better gas mileage, and to give it sufficient power for the little tiny 2-liter motor that it had. And it wasn't my first 4-cylinder car. My first car was a 4-cylinder. It was a Saturn Ion. And that was a 4-cylinder car. So I was like, oh, this one has a 4-cylinder car, about the same, or 4-cylinder motor, and it's about the same size as the Saturn, only this one has a turbo. So I should get better mileage, or at least comparable mileage, since the Saturn was much lighter and the Passat's now, so much heavier. I figured to at least make up the difference, and I should have comparable reliability. I never had any motor problems with the Saturn. Wonderful car. So get into the Volkswagen. It started doing this thing where taking off from lights, just like we just did now in the Volt, it would creep out into the intersection, and then after a while it would eventually build enough power to move and get up to the speed limit, and it just started bogging down, and I couldn't figure out why. Turbo lag is one thing, but this was something else. This thing was just not getting out of its own way, and if I was trying to make a left on a yield light, it was questionable whether or not I'd be able to get out of the way of oncoming traffic. It became a safety issue, so we took it to a mechanic who gave us a diagnosis and said that the problem was with the turbo and that the turbo needed to be replaced. And this is a $2,000 fix to replace it, and not just for the part, but like the labor for it was extreme, because they had to partially remove the motor to get to where the turbo was, to get to all the connections and get this thing, get the old one off, get the new one on and replumbed. And it was just this big whole thing. So I'm without my car for 10 days, 2 weeks or so. Get the car back, the turbo's been replaced, still not making power. Turn around and take it, like literally leaving the mechanic, car wasn't making power, and had just paid all that money to have the turbo replaced. Turn around, bring it right back. The second diagnosis determines that something is wrong with the high pressure fuel pump. So they actually put a new high pressure fuel pump on it, just for free. Like, didn't even charge me for that, because they hadn't fixed the car yet. And that was a whole big thing. Couldn't figure out what the problem was. Eventually, the mechanic gave up on it. And the place I went didn't know what to do about it. And the guy who sold us the car in the first place agreed to take it back and take a look at it. And he determined that it needed a new camshaft. There's a lobe on the camshaft that engages the high pressure fuel pump, because Volkswagen had to over-engineer this thing. There's 2 fuel pumps on it. There's one in the tank, and then there's one in line right next to the motor that gets engaged by one of the lobes of the cam. And he determined that the cam had gone bad, and that that lobe was worn down. It was no longer engaging the high pressure fuel pump. Car was going lean. That was the reason it wasn't making any power. That guy ripped the motor apart, puts a new cam in it. Now, keep in mind, guys, this whole time, like, I'm without my car on and off, and I drive all day, every day. At that time, it was especially stressful because when the car first went down, I was just starting a new job. I was like, I didn't have reliable transportation. I was showing up in a different borrowed vehicle or getting dropped off by my best friend, because she's an angel, every day to my new job. And it was embarrassing. It was becoming this whole big thing. And anyway, he gets the cam replaced, and for a while the Volkswagen worked great. I was really bummed out the whole time the car was down, and every time somebody had it apart, I made it my business to see what was going on the inside of my car. It really killed me that there was something wrong with it that I couldn't fix myself. I didn't have the knowledge, I didn't have the experience, I didn't have the time. Even if I did have all three of those things, I didn't have the tools. Well, the being a European motor, and it needed a bunch of weird stuff. At one point, we ended up getting a Volkswagen specific code reader, because there were certain things that a regular code reader couldn't get done, because it needed to be a German specific thing. It was just this ongoing nightmare. Get the car back, car's making decent power, everything's fine, and then the power problem starts again, and so does this weird vibration and rattling. Finally, I just took it to a different mechanic at All European Auto, Jason at All European Auto. There's an amazing shop, such a cool dude. Takes a look at the thing, and I say, okay, so what's wrong with my Passat, and how do I fix it? And he says, shoot it. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. This car is my baby. I love it. Like, it's put me through hell, but I love this car. He goes, here's the thing. When the guy replaced the camshaft, that's great, but the cam tunnel actually it's actually been worn out to the shape of the bad cam. So now that the new cam you've gotten through the break-in period of it after a couple of months, it has settled into the pathway that old bad cam had made in that motor, and it's done. Like, you have to replace the motor to fix this car. It costs more to replace the motor and to fix it than it would be to replace the car. It's not worth that. And he goes on to tell me, he goes, if I had known that this was going to be the car you guys were going to buy, I would have advised against it, because these used to be really good cars in the 90s, but something happened with Volkswagen, and in the early 2000s, these things just took a crap, and the Passat is no longer a reliable platform. This motor, this 2.0T, the turbo motor that Volkswagen likes to put in everything, is really good for like the first 50,000 miles, and after that, they're just garbage. So I was like, I was freaking out. I was having a panic attack. I can't afford a new car. I don't know what to do. And the one that I have is now not worth anything. And I was like, what do I do? He goes, clear the codes, fill it with the heaviest weight motor oil that you can, and get it to a dealership immediately and trade it in. And just do that. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's what I did that day. Cleared the codes, filled it with the heaviest motor oil I could. That stopped the shake and the vibration. Babied it home. Went online, found CarMax, got approved, and went in and got the thing appraised. And then they said, oh, read some codes, look at the history of the car, it's never been in an accident, we'll give you this much for it towards purchase of a new car. They had this Volt on the lot. I actually went there looking for a Honda Fit, fell in love with this car, hadn't considered an electric car as a possibility for me, and then got there, and this was actually less than the Honda Fit I was looking at. And the added car payment every month is, not gonna lie, guys, it's a real bitch. But I have to have a way to get to and from work. I have to have a way to get around in my life and do the things that I need to do. So it was an absolute necessity, and to get into something reliable. And from that day forward, ever since I've had the Volt, I look at a Volkswagen emblem and I get upset. I see a Volkswagen Passat, especially if I see a white 06 Passat is not hard to find. You see them on the road everywhere, and every time I see one, I get angry. I feel like my car betrayed me. I feel personally slighted by the thing, because I adored that vehicle. It was so comfortable on the inside of it. It was just such a wonderful, wonderful thing. And additionally to that, the car was a gift from my magnificent and generous father-in-law, and I was just so in love with the vehicle, and for it to turn on me the way that it did and to cause all the problems it did and to give me all those reliability issues, and it was just one thing after another, and the car just became a money pit, and it really hurt my feelings. And so I was like, okay, never again with Volkswagen, possibly never again with another European car. My next car is either going to be a Honda because they're known for reliability, or made in America where I can get parts, and I know how to. I can figure out how to work on it with the tools that I have. So now I'm in the Volts, and I had to tell you that story to tell you this story. Volkswagen. I don't know if you guys have heard this news. Volkswagen is planning, and I made a video about it, a whole bunch of electric cars that they plan on mostly releasing in China in the next few years. But they are bringing back the microbus, that iconic hippie van that we all know and love, that's sort of become its own character on the face of human history. Like the microbus is its own thing. The hippie wagon thing is its own thing, and they're beautiful. There's one wagon in particular there's one microbus in particular that I see all the time at the car show on Eastern, where I will be tomorrow morning. And the license plate on it says Mint, M-I-N-T, Mint to be, and it's this beautiful green bus. And if I see it tomorrow, I'll make sure to do a video, like a little clip on it specifically. Just that old style with all of the windows all the way around it, and the little curtains and the little touches here and there. So the ones that are set up as campers with the little sink and the little burner and all the storage, the ones that are just set up as passenger vehicles they were these beautiful things that were just for getting people together and transporting people together to fun places where they could be together. Like, that's just like the whole vibe of the VW microbus. And they plan on bringing the microbus back in an all-electric, slated to go into production in 2022. Now that's about 4 years away, which right now I feel like is a long time, but it's going to just fly by. They have given us no other specs. I don't know what kind of 0 to 60 it's going to have, what kind of horsepower, what kind of range it's going to have, how long it's going to take to charge, any of the infotainment. So we don't know anything about the thing except for like a couple of concept drawings that they've released, and we know it's going to be all electric. And that is the one thing that might get me interested in the Volkswagen brand again. I felt really hurt by the Passat guys. I don't know. It was overbuilt and over-engineered, and they tried to pack all this technology into a motor that it wasn't a good platform to begin with. And then they put all this extra functionality, like with the extra fuel pumps that didn't need to be there, and the way that the placement of the turbo so you can't possibly get to. And guys, turbos go bad. Like, that is a moving part in there inside of a turbo. That wheel just spinning around all of the time, and sooner or later the turbo's gonna go bad way before the motor. So you'd think they'd make it serviceable. Not serviceable in the slightest. You open the thing up and it looks like the freaking space shuttle. It's like, why do you do this? Why it's gotta be so German? I think the word I'm looking for is German. And what I mean by that is like everything crazy detail oriented and built by engineers, not mechanics. And they're not the same thing. An engineer can have the skills and ability of a mechanic, and a mechanic can have the skills and ability and knowledge of an engineer. But it's the spirit of the thing. And when you open the thing up, I could tell that this was designed by people and built by people with an engineer's spirit and not a mechanic's spirit, because they built it to be friendly to the engineers. They built it to work the way they wanted it to work, but they didn't build it to be serviced. And that was immediately obvious when you started looking up the service, like the book times for various jobs on the thing. An all-electric Volkswagen, now I'm sure they're going to over-engineer the absolute crap out of it too, because that's what Volkswagen does, but there's less moving parts, way less moving parts for an electric motor. They're way more reliable. There's no corrosive motor oil. There's no corrosive gas or diesel. There's none of those things. There's none of that wear and tear. So, maybe we could see 250,000 miles that are reliable, that we could get to reliably in a Volkswagen with this new microbus. And the microbus style, like, could that come and replace the minivan? You don't see all electric minivans right now because they're big, they're heavy, they're not aerodynamic, and a minivan at this time isn't going to have a very impressive EV range, electric motor range with their battery packs, because they are big, because they are long, because they are not aerodynamic. But a minivan minivans and SUVs are an important part of American culture at this point. If you've got 2 or more kids, you're probably thinking about a minivan. And if you have 2 or more kids and you don't have a minivan, you wish you had a minivan. I grew up with a minivan. My mom had a Ford Aerostar. The thing was amazing because it was built on a Ford Ranger platform. So the thing was basically a pickup truck where they just kind of set a van on top of it. And it had like the big bus driver style stick shift with my tiny mommy just kind of rolling down the highway and shifting the crap out of it. And we did all kinds of road trips in that thing, and nothing in it worked. Like eventually the sliding door was the only passenger door that worked, so that if you wanted to sit in the front seat, you had to get in the sliding door and then climb over the stick shift and then get in the passenger side, which was hilarious to watch my parents try to do. And after a while, like, that minivan was so important. Like, I had like my sisters and my brother and I cruising around in it, all my mom's errands. Whenever she had to do a big grocery shopping trip, we had to travel as a family. Eventually my dad started using it for job sites and things like that, because his truck went down and he needed a truck. And my dad was in the trades. He was an electrician, he was a painter, he was many things. And you name it, in the trades, my dad could do it and did do it in order to put food on the table. And the minivan let him do it. Like, that Ford Aerostar let him do those things up and down the hill to Tahoe every day. If you guys don't know Northern Nevada, that's a pretty serious grade to climb every day. And that thing did it every day without complaint. And I have such amazing memories of this just POS minivan. But, like, if I saw another, gold Aerostar that was that year for sale, no matter what condition it was in, if I had money in my pocket, I'd probably buy it, just because of the memories I had in it and how important the thing was. At one point my dad ripped the seats out of it and filled the thing up with firewood, because that was how we heated our house when I was a kid, and filled it. I'm talking from the driver's seat back, filled it to where the thing looked lowered. There was that much in it because it was built on the truck frame and that Ranger platform, and it was just, God, it was such a cool thing. We don't have electric minivans though. Like, the future, like the days of the all gas motors, the ICE motors they are numbered. And I don't know, guys, like, could this Volkswagen be the first all electric minivan that, I mean, it probably wouldn't be the work truck that my mom's Aerostar was. That, God, it makes me smile when I think about it. It probably couldn't be that level of workhorse, or maybe it could. Like, what do you guys think? First of all, what car did you grow up in when you were a kid? I want to know that, because that's where we first start appreciating vehicles, and that's where our expectations get set when you're children and you see the kind of utility. And you don't think about it when you're a kid. You don't think to yourself like, wow, this minivan has amazing utility. But, like, now looking back at it as an adult, I'm like, holy crap, we did everything with that car. And, like, what was the car that you guys grew up in? And my parents had a few, but the minivan was the mainstay. And, God, it was such an amazing thing. I love that thing. Number one, what do you think about this Volkswagen all-electric microbus? Do you think they should try to, like, they look like they're resurrecting the style. If you go look at the concept drawings and stuff like that, it looks like a futuristic version of the hippie bus. What do you guys think about that? Do you think they're trying to, like, reappropriate their own culture and remarket it to us? And if so, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? What kind of range do you estimate they're going to be able to get out of this thing? It is shaped like they've rounded out some of the edges on the bus, but it's still got a flat nose on it and a flat roof and a flat rear, all of which are not good for aerodynamics. So, like, how do you think that's going to affect the range? Are they sacrificing range in order to have that microbus style to make it recognizable to the Volkswagen brand? Of my degrees, marketing is one of them, and looking at the styling and the choices that they're making now, like, I don't know what's going to make it to final production, obviously, but the choices that they're making now are getting, like, they're very attention-getting choices, because you look at it and you know right away, like, that is a Volkswagen microbus. And it's pretty cool. It's very smart. Volkswagen is trying to do whatever they can to recover their brand and their position in the automotive community after Dieselgate, with the whole diesel scandal, and to try to rebrand themselves as a low emissions automotive producer and manufacturer. Volkswagen owns everything. Volkswagen owns Audi, it owns Lamborghini. Volkswagen owns everything. So they have all of these manufacturing facilities that are available to them. They're investing huge quantities of money, and I'm talking billions with a B, in producing electric cars to sell in China. In a few years, China's not going to allow gas or diesel at all. It's going to be all electric vehicles all the time, unless you have a special use permit from the state, because you need the diesel fuel for something. Like, they have a really big air quality problem in China, and they're trying to solve it. This aggressive plan, it looks like a challenge, and it's going to be a huge challenge, but Volkswagen's jumping at the opportunity, and I'm sure other manufacturers are as well, but not the way, I haven't seen anyway, not the way that Volkswagen is. And the microbus, I think if they can get a decent enough range, I think it would do fairly well in the States. Like, what kind of range do you guys think it would need to be useful to moms on the go now? Now, I realize my videos aren't usually this long, but I saw the microbus. It made me think of my mom's minivan. It made me think of my experience with the Volkswagen Passat, and I wanted to share a little bit about that. So if you've made it all the way to the end of this video, man, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I hope everybody has a really good Friday. We have a really good weekend. Tomorrow morning, I will be at the car show on Eastern. That car show goes from 7 to 10 a.m. on the intersection of Eastern and Serene. It's in the Twin Peaks parking lot. So come stop by, come say hello, tell me what you think in person, come have a seat in the Volt. I'll give you a ride in Alessandro. It'll be a good day. And beyond that, I just hope everybody has a good Friday, and I'm really excited to hear what you guys think about this Volkswagen all-electric microbus. My name is Catherine for EVs of Nevada. Please remember to like, subscribe, and smile.